7:34 on the Talk of the Town with Dave, Jay, and Beth. And our next guest lining up on the phone right now. Now, do you guys want to introduce him? Because there's a bit of a discussion that we're having here in the studio as to how he should be introduced.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because I was going to give him the option to ask him how he would like to be introduced.
All right,
it's Mike Vasquez on the phone.
Yeah.
He's a contributor to the show in many different ways.
And also a big listener to the show as well.
Yep. And Mike, how would you describe yourself to a friend or an individual or someone you're just meeting?
Some guy.
Professionally, I'm a political commentator.
That's what I've been saying. But you do have an agenda, I think, correct? And you do have a stated side that you fall on.
Well, I'm also very honest. Unlike most, all of us in the news media, everyone votes, everyone's involved. I'm honest enough to tell people up front, here's my position. Mm-hmm. But I'm also honest enough that when I do my interviews and when I do my research, I look at all the data. If I have a conclusion, people can disagree with my conclusion. I'm a pundit.
All right. So now it's interesting. You'd be a conservative guy, right? Mostly?
Conservative Republican, yeah.
Okay, conservative Republican. We were talking earlier this morning and last week on the show about how George Will, the well-known conservative columnist, has turned his back on the Republican Party. I don't know if you saw his column. He says he thinks this year Democrats might be the better choice. What did you think about that?
I disagree with him, especially with Hillary at the forefront of it. She's just atrocious.
So you're a Trump supporter then?
Essentially.
Well, by default or deliberately?
For me personally, by default,
Yes.
I was a Cruz man.
Mm-hmm.
I supported Cruz. I don't know enough about Mr. Trump's positions internationally to really have a good opinion. I'd love to hear him and Hillary talk about the South China Sea dispute between the Philippines and China, because they're going to be dealing with international policy. They need to start focusing on that and telling us about that.
And Ted Cruz apparently having a presence at the Republican National Convention coming up. Do you think that will have any influence?
No, Trump.
No.
He was picked by the public, so that's how our system works, and that's good.
Quick to answer. Mike said he was honest, so he's just giving us, his feelings. But Mike, I know one of the topics we wanted to touch on was, your call for the denouncing of the violence and the hate that has been taking place across our country.
Absolutely. Especially from the Black Lives Matter groups, which down here in Binghamton, there's a local, they recently started their events down here. And a lot of the talk from Black Lives Matter has been hate speech. There is no way to describe it. It's hate against us. How many times in the last year we heard their representatives get on national TV, onto social media, take over political events and speeches and just spout hate speech against the police. When you keep doing something like that, we can't be surprised when one of their supporters, apparently or allegedly one of their supporters, turns around and enacts violence.
Well, there isn't, as far as I've seen, there isn't any evidence that he was a supporter of Black Lives Matter in particular. It seemed as though he was more interested in some very, very radical groups that were involved with, I don't know if you would call it African American rights, that he seems to placid a statement for the things that they advocated. But it didn't look like it was really about Black Lives Matter per se, as it was these very militant type organizations.
I don't see the separation.
How do you not see the separation between those two types of organizations?
Because one feeds the other.
Well, but one has on their platform come out and said that they denounce violence, and one group of them have actively promoted violence.
True, but let's look at what Black Lives Matter has really said. They've been on national TV, CNN, Fox News, where they have called for kill the cops, burning cops. It was fry the bacon was one of their statements. These are violent statements.
Yeah.
They've been very strong about that. And to see that from that root, to see a fruition or growth of other hate groups that are more active in their hate is progression.
Yeah, Mike, a WNBA team last night, the Minnesota Lynx, using Black Lives Matter as a platform statement to make their own agenda known with regard to that. They had T-shirts last night at the WNBA game with the Black Lives Matter logo on the back there, causing 4 policemen serving as security officers at that game to walk out in their own protest there, which I thought was interesting. We have a poll question running right now on our website. How do we address racial tensions in America? And here are the choices. Demand accountability from the media. Hold police accountable for inappropriate actions. Communities must teach mutual respect, crack down on organizations like Black Lives Matter, and encourage meaningful dialogue. So what do you think among those choices for our poll question? How do we best address racial tension in America?
The biggest thing is to have an open and honest conversation, which includes realizing that one of the biggest problems is not the police. They're really not. There was a Harvard professor who just put out a paper just a couple of days ago. There's Ronald Pryor, and I looked over that. Did you realize that, and I think most people don't know this, most people are going to focus on the fact that 20% of the police shootings are more likely to, more of the fatalities tend to be with black people. But what he also found is that 1/4% of all times that police ever draw their gun in their interactions with the public, white and black combined, it's only 1/4%. If we take up the total number of shootings of excessive force, we're talking about a fraction of a percentage of all interactions with police, and that number pales in comparison to the roughly 8,000 black-on-black violent crimes, violent deaths in the United States, according to the FBI data.
I did see this. I did scan that a little bit, that Harvard professor, and he was even shocked by what he found, as he's also an African-American gentleman as well.
Yeah, and it's because we misrepresent this issue. And we've been seeing since Ferguson, when Black Lives Matter came about, is that people are promoting an agenda, very much like what Hillary Clinton has been doing about this Dallas shooting, is that they're promoting an agenda using emotion on people to cloud their thought. If we stop and actually look at the data, and if we actually look at this without the emotion, we have very different discussions, very different conclusions. Because the discussion right now isn't about getting to a resolution, it's about just being angry. And that anger is being used to promote various political issues.
We're talking with the conservative political pundit Mike Vasquez from the Southern Tier here on the Talk of the Town. If you have opposing viewpoints, feel free to get on the phone, 624-0870, or text us at 623-0373.
Well, I noticed that you're citing Hillary Clinton in this. You're not going to include Donald Trump and some of his rhetoric in that as well?
Well,
Against Mexicans?
what did he really say about the Mexicans? He said everything.
He said that they were rapists?
Some are.
So some white people are rapists too. We're not building a
Exactly.
wall.
That's my fault. Well, he's not building a wall because of the rapists. I mean, I give you, Donald Trump is the most ineloquent politician we've seen in a long time. And I don't agree with the way he says a lot of things. But at the end of the day, what is he talking about at the core of what he says, especially about the wall? That's an issue that's been going on for a decade. He's been saying that. Is he ineloquent? Absolutely. Did he sensationalize it? That's something that you would see from TV entertainers. He is. But is he wrong in that we need to have a southern border, and I would also say a northern border, and be able to protect our borders to protect our nation? That's not an incorrect statement. It's not something that Republicans and conservatives have been saying for years.
Mm-hmm.
My bigger issue is with Hillary Clinton. She's a proven liar. We know that. That's been going on since the municipal sniper bullets.
Well, and the majority of people asked about that situation with the decision from the FBI not to press charges, disapproving of that decision, by the way. We're on with Mike Vasquez here on the Talk of the Town, and also giving a speech coming up, right, Jack?
Yeah, Mike, I know we just touched on one of the topics you wanted to get into, but the other topic that you would like to let folks be aware of is a speech that you're going to make with some other individuals coming up in about a week or so.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, it's going to be on July 23rd in Norwich, New York, at the East Park, from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. And it's called the Bring Back America Festival. It's the second annual event brought by Southern Tier Scope of New York. And there's going to be Carl Palladino. It's going to be State Senator Fred Akshar, Claudia Tenney. There's going to be Rob Astorino, myself, are some of the speakers that are going to be speaking about our rights, Second Amendment, defeating the New York SAFE Act, and the political climate. I guarantee you we're going to be talking about Dallas, some of the reactions we've seen from the presidential level,
All right.
and all the candidates.
When and where? When and where, Mike?
The 23rd of July in Norwich at the East Park from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m.
All right. Well, thanks for the call, and we'll look forward to that. If folks have any thoughts on the other side of the issues Mike was talking about, feel free to call in 624-0870 or the text line 623-0373. It's 7:45 on the Talk of the Town.